So you've decided you want to be President of the United States. Congratulations! But there are a few things you need to know going forward. Lucky for you, we've put together a how-to manual. First off the bat, according to the US Constitution, there are some criteria you need to meet. You need to be born in the United States or one of its eligible territories, or be the child of a natural-born citizen. You need to be at least 35 years old, and you need to have lived in the US for at least 14 consecutive years. If all these apply to you, then you've passed the first test. It's worth mentioning though that it might help if you have some political experience, or an important family, or a whole lot of money, or your own reality TV show.
You're fired. You're fired. You're fired. Go.
They'll come in handy as the real challenges are about to begin. So, what are your political stances? Are you more of a Republican or a Democrat? Or perhaps you're more aligned to some of the other parties out there. Or maybe you want to run as an independent, but that can be a little risky as the big two will probably edge you off the ballot later. Bear in mind, the only independent to ever win was President George Washington. You know, the very first one. Either way, you're going to need some money initially and a whole lot later on to run a successful campaign. To finalize your candidacy with the Federal Election Committee, you need to raise more than $5,000 for campaign financing and have a treasurer to manage your expenditures. Then you need to get your name on the ballot in all 50 states, and the requirements differ from state to state and election to election, so be sure to do your research. In 2020, California, for example, requires 26,500 valid signatures for Republicans, 49,000 for Democrats, and up to 197,000 for independents. Whereas Idaho only requires a $1,000 fee for candidates from the big two parties, while independents only have to source 1,000 signatures. Either way, it means putting in the hours in local governments, photo ops with babies, weekend barbecues, and fraternizing with rich strangers, because you need to get your name out there, which means you need to get money. Candidates love their fundraising dinners and rallies, and that's because they really do need to spend money to convince voters to vote for them. But some of the biggest contributions to campaigns come from PACs, or political action committees, and super PACs, which are groups that raise and spend money to influence the outcome of federal elections. They're generally formed by corporations, labor unions, trade associations, or other organizations or individuals which, in turn, pressure candidates to push for legislation in favor of their interests or causes. Some groups even include oil companies like ExxonMobil and Halliburton, as well as large pharmaceutical companies like Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson, and even big players from the defense industry like Lockheed Martin. Now, if you're running for a party, you need to compete against all your other fellow party candidates to be the official party presidential nominee. These are statewide elections where candidates compete to win delegates to become the party nominee. A caucus is run by a political party where votes are cast by a show of hands. A primary is run by the state and determined by a secret ballot. To become the nominee, you need to get a majority of delegates on your side. Delegates are selected party members who will be your sworn supporters at the National Party Convention. It's important not to upset the candidates you're running against too much, because if they drop out, you'd want them to back you, so their delegates would also back you. After the primaries, the parties head into their national conventions, which form the legal authority that decides on the party's nominee for president. The delegates will gather and go through a series of votes. A roll call vote is held, where each state or territory's spokesperson announces its delegate count from the primaries. If you're able to secure at least half of the delegates, then you're automatically the party nominee. If not, you'll head into a contested convention against the candidates who haven't been voted out yet. And here is where superdelegates or unpledged delegates play a crucial role. These are a percentage of delegates who retain the authority to place their support behind the candidate they believe has the best chance of becoming president, irrespective of whatever happened in the primaries. For Republicans, superdelegates are behooven to support the favored candidate from their state's primaries. But for Democrats, superdelegates retain full authority to support the candidate they believe would have the best chance for the party to make it to the White House, even if it means switching alliances. And after all that, if there's no clear nominee, then you may have to go into a brokered convention where delegates will continue voting on ballots over and over and over again until one of the candidates secure at least half of them and a nominee is finally appointed. If and once you have won the nomination to be your party's presidential candidate, have a speech prepared because you'll be introducing your running mate and signing off the night with a keynote address to rally support for the final stretch. If you've made it this far, don't fret, there's not much longer to go. Now you'll be heading into the presidential debates, and your opponents, the presidential candidate from the other party or any independent who's running, is going to want to make themselves look like they're a lot more worthy of the public's vote than you are. So now is the time to really make sure your public image is squeaky clean or resonates with the public. Ensure you articulate your views, stances, and make sure there are no embarrassing videos or pictures from your past out there. And if there are, prepare your responses to them. And although the presidential debates are technically an opportunity to show the public why you're the best choice for president, there's usually plenty of room for cheap shots and low blows. Also, be sure to set aside enough funds for promoters and ad campaigns that endorse your message to the public.
I'm Mike Bloomberg, and I approve this message.
So, look your best, be confident, pull out your charisma card, and ready yourself for any dirt, real or imagined, that will be thrown at you. Because now's your chance to really get the people on your side. The president is chosen every 4 years. You and your vice presidential nominee form what's called a ticket. When it comes to election day, the people vote for the ticket they want in power, which actually brings us to one of the most unique aspects of American democracy. Each state gets a number of electors that make up the Electoral College. All in all, there is a total of 538 electors across the country who decide who the next president will be. The number of electors vary from state to state based on population size, but this doesn't mean that the ratio of electors to people is the same everywhere. For instance, Vermont has roughly 173,000 voters for each elector, while Michigan has about 460,000 voters per elector. And in most states, it's a winner-takes-all system, except Nebraska and Maine, where Electoral College votes are allocated proportionally. So if you win just 50.1% of the vote in California, you'll take all 55 members of the state's Electoral College. So this means that the US elections are really more about strategically winning states. It's not really a one-person, one-vote type situation. Like, if you win the popular vote but lose the Electoral College vote, you lose the election. It happened to Hillary Clinton in 2016 against Trump, and Al Gore in 2000 when he lost the presidency to George W. Bush, and 2 other times back in 1876 and 1888. And in most states, all the electors will vote for the presidential ticket that received the most support from the public. However, in 18 states, electors aren't legally required to, and can actually renegade on the public's choice. But don't worry, this has never actually come into play when determining the presidency. When you've won the majority of the Electoral College, you've won the election. Congratulations! You're now the President of the United States of America.